I have generated my project and I've now got my code editor inside this new snippets directory. Now we're going to need to save all these snippets in some location and persist them over time. So for that, we're going to save our data into a database. For this very simple application, we're going to use a local SQLite database. This is a file-based database. It's going to be saved into our project directory. To access this database, we're going to use a very popular library for working with databases called Prisma. In this video, we're going to do a little bit of setup with Prisma and also create this database at the same time. So to get started, I'm going to go over to my editor. And again, I've got my terminal open. You can have this open in a separate window in your code editor. Either one is totally fine. Inside this terminal window, I'm inside my project directory, and I'm going to first install Prisma into my project with a npm install Prisma. After that runs, we're going to do a little bit of initialization by running npx prisma init and then --data source -provider SQLite. So a little bit of a long command there. I'll go ahead and run that. And then we'll very quickly be told, okay, that's kind of it. You've done your setup. Now, before we really run off and assume everything is done, we just need to do one more thing. We need to tell Prisma about the different kinds of data that we're going to have inside of our application. To do so, we will find a new Prisma folder inside of our root project directory. I'm going to open that up and then find a file inside there called schema.prisma. Inside this file, we're going to define, like I mentioned, all the different kinds of data that we're going to store in our database. At the bottom of the file, we're going to define a new model by putting in model, and then we're going to call this thing a snippet. So this is telling Prisma that we're going to have a new kind of piece of data that we're going to save into our database. It's going to be called a snippet. We're then going to assign or define the different properties that a snippet is going to have. First, I'm going to say that a snippet is going to have an ID that will be an integer. I'm going to mark it as being the ID for this record. And then I'll make sure that this thing gets a default value whenever we create a new snippet of auto increment. The auto increment means that we want to start off with our first snippet ever created being given an ID of 1, and then 2, then 3, then 4, and so on. My snippets are also going to have a title property that is a string and a code property that is a string. Once we've added all this in, we need to tell Prisma that we want it to use this new definition that we've put together to create our SQLite database. To do so, back inside my terminal, I'm going to run npx prisma migrate dev. When I run that command, I'm going to be prompted to enter in a name for this change that we're making to the database because we're kind of changing the structure of the database. I'm going to give a name of add snippets, like so. All right, and that's it. So now our database is all set up. Besides managing our database, Prisma is also going to add a little bit of code to our project as well that we can use to access our database and add records, change records, delete records, and so on. Okay, so last thing we're going to do is start up our project with a npm run dev. Once I run that, I'm going to make sure everything's working okay. So back inside my browser, I'll go to localhost 3000. And there is our usual welcome page. Very good.